Hello and welcome to Design Education Talks podcast by the New Art School. Our guests today are Huang and Julia Donatello. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks for having us, Lefteris.
It's such a pleasure. Hello. It's such a pleasure to talk, especially regarding the amazing conference you're preparing.
Yeah, it's good to be back on the show. I think last time we were talking before we started recording. Last time I was on the show was 2021, so very different world, and it's good to be back on the show, but also to be able to meet in person and do in-person conferences again.
Wonderful. It's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm very eager to learn about the show and about what you're doing. So what can attendees expect from the AIGA Design Conference?
Yeah, so the AIGA Design Conference this year is in Los Angeles, California. It's taking place at the Westin Bonaventure in downtown LA, October 9th through 11th. And the theme this year is design and performance, which is what we have been exploring over the course of our podcast on the AIGA Design Podcast as well. So a couple years ago, we made the decision to have these integrated themes for our entire year of programming and then culminating in the AIGA Design Conference. And so our speakers have interpreted design and performance in different ways, some very literally, like we have a workshop on public speaking and presenting, showing your work. And then we also have business-related topics. Carl Sakis, who was a guest on our podcast, is a consultant. He used to run a design studio, and now he consults to agency owners on the financial performance, the business performance of their design practices. So, and there's everything in between in terms of like how design really choreographs our lives in terms of the services and the experiences that are being crafted. I don't know, Julia, are there some other standouts that you wanted to preview for people?
Yeah. So as I was reading all the confirmed speakers and their sessions, I think it's interesting to share that the sessions will have different formats. So we'll have the main speaker sessions. We'll also have one day full of workshops, some presentation sessions as well, and also some more of a design dialogue, which is very much like an interactive type of session. And I was reading the themes and the topics and trying to cluster them. And I came up with some of them I will share with you because it's so different from each other, but still very much connecting with the theme. So the first theme is performance as personal and creative presence. So speaking very much about how folks perceive performance in their individual practice. Designing for inclusion in identity and cultural performance. Design as a resistance, advocacy, and social change. Another theme is futures, speculation, and design, and designer as a change agent. And another one, designing practice. So speaking more of organization teams and systems. So yeah, I'm very curious to see all of this unfolding and connecting with folks in person in LA this year.
Oh, sounds like a really exciting program. Yeah. So what sets this conference apart from the previous ones?
Yeah, I think one of the things I already mentioned, which is because we've been exploring the theme on our podcast throughout the year, it's been a good way to meet speakers. Some of the guests on the podcast are coming to the conference as speakers as well. Erin Shems is another one. She has a company called eZippy Co., and she's a design ops consultant helping creative teams. She says making work suck less. So thinking about performance that way in terms of how you show up in the workplace, how you structure a team and facilitate a team. But in terms of, the conference itself, this is also the most democratic. We've made things this year. We tried something new with a hybrid curation structure. So we still had a committee of AIGA members who chose most of the sessions, but we also had a round of public voting. So we had some speakers who were chosen by the people's choice, and it was open to the entire design community, people who wanted to vote. So we had like just over 1,000 votes. We had 254 submissions of people who wanted to speak. And our acceptance rate was just under 20%. So it really is reflective of what people are interested in seeing out there in the design community, because the AIGA Design Conference is a really big tent. We traditionally are a graphic design organization. The GA and AIGA stands for graphic arts, kind of old-fashioned term because we're over 100 years old, but we really have folks working in UX, UI, service design, design research, a variety of design fields, and we really want to be a place where educators and students and practitioners and senior people, design leaders can kind of meet together and cross-pollinate in this way.
That's wonderful.
I think to add to that, I love how connected everything seems this year. We're as Lishan said, we're inviting podcast participants to also to participate as speakers. The other thing that I think we should share that is interesting happening this year, we have had also a lot of non-members join, more than previous years. So that's very interesting to see how folks who are not yet formally part of AIJ membership that are interested in engaging and being part of this dialogue happening in person in LA. And the other thing I have to emphasize that the Westin Bonaventure Hotel, the venue itself, is an amazing location. We had the chance to go in March in person for a site visit, and it's indeed incredible. And the hotel itself was the site of many movies, so it's very cool to be hosting a design conference in such a venue like that hotel.
Exciting. So is the voting system AIGA's way of engaging with new and emerging voices, or do you have other?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a way to engage with new and emerging voices. Design choices in general, when we're thinking about designing a design conference, which is kind of a meta topic, but there's trade-offs, right? One advantage of doing this public voting is it's informational. It can surface what people are interested in, that are maybe different from a more quote unquote elite group of committee members choosing things. So it could be casting a wider net that way. But we also know that not every speaker has a built-in community, a newsletter, or, thousands of followers. They can say like, hey, vote for me on this thing, right? And so that's why we had this balance of the committee really looking for diversity and a wide range of perspectives, as well as this kind of more public thing, because we didn't want to make it just a popularity contest, but we also didn't want to make it this kind of opaque elite panel kind of thing. So by combining it, we hopefully have a nice mix. And then, just put this out there. We lose money when students and educators come to our conference. We've really made the ticket prices actually below cost. It's obviously cross-subsidized by the regular rates for professionals with more means, but like our student tickets are only $2.99, our educator tickets are $3.99, and then we also have a coupon code for listeners of this podcast, so you get an additional 15% off. And so we're really committed to that as a nonprofit member organization, to really bring in educators and students, knowing that their financial means are different. Yeah, just allowing people to come in the door that way. And then Julie has been coordinating our volunteers as well. We have over 85 people apply to be volunteers, so they get free tickets as well.
Yeah, I love the fact that we're able to offer, and then in this case, it's not only for students, it's whoever would like to participate as volunteers in the conference. But I love to see how we're actually able to extend our team at AIGA National, which is a small team. We're just a little less than 10 people. It's nice to be able to work with a little bit of a larger team for 3-4 days and connect with folks that are interested in the conference, either, as designers, like professional designers, or students itself. So yeah, I'm excited to extend our team for a couple of days with these volunteers.
That's really excellent. I mean, I know you've shared some of the points, some of the participants of the conference, but could you share some more detail of what participants can look forward to?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think about some other folks that I haven't shared yet. We have we've been announcing some of the speakers online as we go. I think,
I do have two people in mind. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. One person I'll highlight is Grace Kwan. as it relates to the topic of this podcast, design education, Grace is a former student of mine from years ago, and she's gone off to do great things. She's now a service designer at Spotify. And so she's doing a panel with some of her colleagues on calling into question, like, the unmeasurable parts of design's performance, right? The value of design. And obviously there are things that we can measure in terms of ROI in a corporate kind of environment. There's other things that we can quantify in terms of user testing, but what are some of these intangibles that are maybe not as measurable? And I think that's an important topic to be discussing as well. So it's great to see, having been a design educator for over a decade now, going on 13 years, it's great to see former students who are now design leaders in their own right coming and speaking at the conference. So that was another person I'd like to highlight, but I think Julia's got some as well.
Yeah. So we also have Robert Bruner. He was in our podcast in the end of last year. He's also a speaker, main stage speaker, for whoever folks who don't know who he is. A co-founder and partner at Ammunition Design Group. We also have Maria Fernanda Larrota. She's also a Parsons faculty. So speaking again of design educators, she's also leading one of the sessions this year. We have Julienne De Vita, which is also a Parsons faculty. Julienne itself, she's going to facilitate a session which is supposed to be very non-traditional. So speaking of performance, they're suggesting a more of a speculative future session where folks can actually embody this performance, like this new context that they're suggesting. So I'm looking forward to that session. I think it should be very engaging.
Yeah, I think they wanted to keep some of the details a little secret, but I think it's meant to be some sort of immersive experience. So different from just like sitting in your seat and listening to folks speak. And then on that topic of more speculative design, I also wanted to highlight Pumla Maswanganyi. I think she might be the person traveling the farthest. She's based in South Africa, and she's the founder and a speculative designer, creative strategist, working in the African continent, with an organization called African Life-Centric Design.
So again, these new ways of engagement with the conference, is there something special for students and early career designers for networking, or are there going to be any opportunities like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the value of the conference is not just in the formal sessions themselves, but it's really in the downtime, right? And I love online conferences for the accessibility of it. We did an online conference last year and we're able to get speakers from as far away as like Syria and Iran, probably people we wouldn't be able to bring to the US, and then also attendees from all over the world. But I think the great part about an in-person conference like the one we're doing in LA is, the people that you meet in the buffet line for breakfast, right? The people that you meet, we're going to do like a happy hour reception that all of the attendees and speakers are invited to on that Friday night on this, kind of pool deck, roof deck thing with a view of downtown Los Angeles. So there's these opportunities, as well. We're going to have some book signings. A lot of our speakers have their own books, and so folks will get the chance to get their book signed and talk to the authors one-on-one. So I think that's a great example. I remember the last time we did an in-person conference was in New York City in 2023, and we had someone who was like a recent graduate, Leah Fernandez, who has been on our show before in one of our live streams during the conference, and she got to meet one of her design heroes, Michael Beirut from Pentagram. I think our official photographer caught it. It was like the three of us all together in like a candid. So it really is the kind of place where students, recent grads can rub elbows with seasoned design leaders in the industry. It's very democratic in that sense. And I think that's one of the great things about AIGA too. It's really a welcoming community for that kind of cross-pollination across generation.
Very excellent. So is physical only? It's offline only. There will not be live streaming.
Yeah, we made this choice. Part of it is just the cost and complexity of doing a live streamed show, and also just a quality choice too of like, is there a real advantage of tuning into something live when you're not in the room and can't interact in the same way? And so we made the choice to record everything except some of the interactive workshops that were off the record. And we'll release the recordings first to ticket holders afterwards. So there's, in some ways, it's no FOMO. So even when we have our breakouts, we have like 4 simultaneous tracks at points of the conference. You can always catch up later on something that you weren't able to go to. And then eventually we'll release the recordings to AIGA members, and then some select recordings we put on our YouTube channel as well. So there's kind of a long tail for this stuff, but we want to make it as accessible as possible. And we actually have a lot of stuff in our vaults from previous conferences that we're still releasing on our YouTube channel. So
I know exactly what it's like.
Yeah, there's just so much content. There's actually stuff from the 1980s that we have access to as well. And it's just going through the curation and sometimes the editing of some of this stuff is, it's time consuming, but it's really great to be part of this design history.
Absolutely. Is there anything else on the conference that we need to talk about that we haven't touched upon?
I would just love to see people there. Downtown LA is a really vibrant area. It's near the arts district of LA. There's a lot of history. It's near Little Tokyo as well. So there's a lot to see and do there. So hopefully people come and extend their trips if they're able to and really experience one of the major creative cities in America. And then again, I mentioned that 15% off coupon code, Design Education Podcast, just all uppercase, Design Education Podcast for 15% off when you are registering.
It's wonderful. I guess AIGA has a separate conference for design education.
We do have a separate conference.
Yes.
That happened in June of this year.
Yes.
And it was something that we were able to reboot. It went away just before COVID because of some budgetary issues, but also leadership changes. And it was really great. It was driven all by volunteers from our design educators community. They put it on don't remember the name of the university, but it's in Normal, Illinois. The name of the town is Normal. Sort of in the middle of the Midwest. And so they pulled that off. And there's a lot of educators who are presenting at our flagship conference in LA as well. So design educators are a major pillar of AIG. And we really pride ourselves in connecting design educators and students with industry. And that's where we see a big part of our role.
Absolutely. And I know this well. So, I mean, we haven't talked for so long, might as well... now that you're here, ask some questions of what you've been up to.
Yeah.
Because now you have a new position of Executive Director of Learning Programs at AIGA.
Yes, yeah. And Julia's title, what is your official title again? You manage our competitions, but also our events and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's design competitions and event manager at AIGA, so part of the programming team.
Yeah. So, Julia's worked with us for just over a year now. I took the reins from my predecessor, Kat, back in 2023, is recently promoted. We now have a sort of, rather than one executive director at AIGA, we have 3 co-executive directors. So it's myself, my colleagues, Karen Keel and Dan Perez. So the 3 of us together run the organization, but my portfolio is really like all of our programming. So it's the podcast that Julia and I co-host and co-produce. It's our flagship national conference, which is in LA this year. It is also, we have some professional education courses that we offer online. We also have the competitions, which is Julia's area. We're also bringing back the AIGA medalist this year. That had been on hold for a couple of years while we were redesigning and rethinking what that means to do AIGA medals. So we're bringing that back as well so we can really honor these senior design leaders for their roles in our discipline and our industry.
That's really exciting. So would you like to say anything more about AIGA and design education outside the conference and anything else that they're doing?
Yeah, I would say that part of our focus on design education is fostering this culture of sharing and learning. So the conference is an example of that. And then in terms of our professional development offerings, a lot of this was built under our previous executive director, Benny Johnson. We were really focused on what we call the design adjacent. So some of our most popular courses are not what somebody might consider like core design courses. There's things like project management, things like entrepreneurship. Our writing class is actually, our business writing class is actually quite popular as well. So these are these adjacent skills that are really important for designers as we progress in our careers. A lot of the stuff is curated of like things that I wish I knew when I started my studio way back in the day, that I learned just from the school of hard knocks, right, from life. And so we really wanted to make it financially accessible. The professional development courses are all online, self-paced, with quizzes built in. So you're getting a certification as well. We're actually doing our portfolio week this week as part of our AIGA certification programs. We have a professional designer, which is for junior designers, and a design leader certification program that's composed of these online classes as well as a portfolio review. So Julia and I have been doing these reviews this year, and it's been great seeing designers in all walks of life from all over the country and the world. From somebody yesterday, we were reviewing his portfolio. He designs content for NASA. So like motion graphics, animation for NASA. We had somebody who works with an architectural firm in the Midwest on signage and wayfinding. So it's really cool. That's a great way to like go deep into learning about folks in our community, as they're also honing their skills on how they talk about themselves, how they talk about their work, and learning about these design adjacent kinds of skills as well.
Well, that's excellent. So, Lishon, how would you define meaningful design education today?
I think there's like different pillars. Leanne actually talked about this with some high school students last month. But I'm kind of really into like frameworks as just a way to structure my thoughts, because as you can see, you get me talking and I can just keep on talking. So there's the core, there's like the 3 C's. And so there is your craft, which is your hand skills, your software skills, but also your people skills, like how you deal with clients, I think is very much part of your craft. There's your community, which I prefer to something like networking. It really is like being part of AIGA or being part of a local meetup, or when you're in design school, like your cohort is also your community. And that's another pillar of your learning and your development as a designer. And then there's your curiosity, which is really like the drive behind things, whether it's a curiosity you bring to a user research interview, but also your curiosity for things outside of design. That's one of the things that I try to balance with my students, having taught for 13 years now in a studio design kind of program, especially when we have a lot of international students, people who move to New York for the first time. It's very easy to just stay with your cohort, right? Because it's very close. You have classes together, you're working together on group projects, but it's also important to explore your city and your community, other communities, because design by definition is this liminal discipline, right? It's like you have to work with other people, other clients from different disciplines and things like that. So the earlier you get comfortable, not just being around other designers, but with other people from other disciplines, other skill sets, and getting out there. So yeah, that core craft, the community building, as well as this curiosity, this open curiosity that's about going broad, but also this drive of what motivates you as a designer, I think are really important.
Might add the 4th C, which would be clients.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I just want to build on what Nishan said, because especially for folks who are in school at the moment or recent grads, I feel like in the era of AI, many folks are now like learning how to work a lot on their own and having AI as a like partner in a way. And I fear that at some point this is going to become a type of practice that is more individual and less collaborative with humans. So I do want to emphasize this importance of going out in the world and actually meeting other humans that are doing similar work or not, just because, again, inspiration can come from different sources, not necessarily from the folks doing the same nature of job that you're doing. So yeah, actually getting out of your laptop and meeting human beings is something that we have been discussing a lot. That is important.
It's actually much harder to start off on your own. It's much easier to start as part of a group for a while and then go on your own. personally, I don't recommend students starting on their own because they might even quit because of the level of challenge, the level of difficulty that is to be on your own without having seen an example of how it's done professionally.
Totally. Yeah. It's like there's plenty of free YouTube tutorials on almost like whatever tool you want to learn, right? And I use those too just because Adobe updates their software so often and things like that. But, that alone doesn't make you a designer. It really is like getting that feedback from your professors, from your peers, the critique part of things and just being part of that creative community too. Like, how do you formulate a compelling design brief as well, beyond just the things that you're making? And I think it's good over the years seeing like more and more students come already with some of these skills with the design tools. And I think that actually allows us to accelerate some of the things we do in the classrooms is really focused on concepts and research and working on projects and critiquing them and testing them and things like that. And so a lot of like the basic skill demos when it comes to the tools, they can do on their own time. A lot of them come in already with a foundation there. So that's been good.
That's exciting. So what skills do you believe designers need that are not taught in school?
Yeah, I think
I can.
Yeah, go ahead. Julia's more recently graduated, so I think she has a good perspective on this.
I do. I think, actually I have a bit of a non-linear career in terms of being a designer. From undergrad, I was trained as a marketeer, so worked in marketing and consumer insights for the past, decade. And then now, had the chance to pursue grad school at Parsons, so a design school. I think one thing that we actually hear a lot from, especially from folks who are finishing the programs that AIGA, offers. I think some of the item that they say the most that they're enjoyed is the business aspects, as Lishan mentioned earlier. So I think because usually art school is mostly focused on, boosting and encouraging your creative skills, there is the need of actually learning how to, know your finances or, start a company from scratch, and sometimes even like how to sell your work, your practice. So being able to measure your work and quantify in order for you to actually have, a price that you will share with your clients. So I think this aspect of the business skills, our community usually values a lot once they are already in the market. So I think it's something that they feel that once you're working in a company, or if you're an entrepreneur and had to open your own business, or if you're a freelancer, which happens a lot in the design field, knowing more about how to run a business. And also once you become a leader, so, you have a team to manage and all that. I think there's also skills that somehow lack in the formal traditional art and design school.
Do you think that there are other ways of learning design these days outside of established universities?
For sure. I mean, we definitely saw over the last decade or so the rise and maybe the decline now of these boot camps that were primarily servicing the tech industry in their hiring booms and busts. I think there's, again, trade-offs is a big theme in design choices, right? So in some ways it was good in terms of training a lot of designers very quickly. But then there's also this disadvantage of a kind of sameness where because it was so narrowly vocationally focused, a lot of the designers that I talked to and reviewed the portfolios and all of that, there was a kind of a sameness in the way that they approached the projects that were like, maybe got you in the door for an entry level job, but weren't necessarily things, weren't things that cultivated like a unique point of view or set you up to be a design leader. And so, this is where we're trying to fill in the gap at AIGA. We really do believe in lifelong learning, which I try to walk the walk as well by learning other things and stuff like that. So whether it's just experimenting with AI prompts, because the tools are changing like on a daily basis, to really learning with your community, right? Whether it's just watching other people present their work and learning from them, or being part of a team and learning on the job. So there's so many ways to do this. Doing the AIGA certification programs, So in some ways, there's so many choices that sometimes it's just helpful to have a conversation with someone, a mentor, or reach out to one of us. We're very open and accessible to folks too, to help people figure out their own learning journeys, whether it's with us or we're happy to refer folks to other places as well. Because we're not trying to, be the one-stop shop here. There's plenty of people doing great work in design education.
Well, the sameness of graduate portfolios is a huge topic. It's a huge topic because it has so many elements to it. And this is something I try to combat because I think that the graduates right now are at the point with the increasing pressures. Graduates are saying, okay, what do I need to do in order to get work? And some, because of various factors, start from bad guidance or increased anxiety or whatever, say, okay, I'm going to do this because this is what I see is in demand. But it's a completely wrong path to follow instead of going more individualized, more inward, discovering themselves. But again, there are not so many opportunities for that these days.
Yeah.
In many education systems.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard one of your podcasts with one of your Greek colleagues about design education and, this theme of like more and more design schools are very international, right? There's a lot of international students. It's quite diverse in terms of the backgrounds that the students are coming from. I mean, Julia's from Brazil, for example, and she came to Parsons. And so part of it is also seeing like where like the education systems that are producing the students that then come to me as grad students. I think there's often a big difference between folks who are really trained already to be active in class discussion and debate and critique to folks who are maybe students who had much more structured environments where they were just told what to do by their professors, right? And that need for clarity. And I think a big part of design education, creative education in general, arts education really is about like dealing with that ambiguity. And sometimes I think a lot of really compelling assignments are about the open-endedness to it, because that's its own kind of difficulty. It's not like, rigor is good too. Like, oh, you have to use, this process, these tools, and it has to, like, I don't think there's a lack of rigor in terms of the students that I'm seeing. Like a lot of them are used to these very competitive, rigorous academic environments in undergrad and high school before that. But it really is the like dealing with the open-endedness and the self-directedness of something can be tough. And there's a lot of cross-cultural differences there too.
Yeah. And I also want to add to that once folks are done with school, there are also, I think, especially in the creative field, a lot of roles that are either fully remote or hybrid. So the need of actually being expert in self-directing your work is important even after you're done with school, because, sometimes you have less structure. You're at home and you have to get things done and all that when you're working with a creative team that is fully remote, for instance. So I think it's a type of skill that is really, really needed. And it's good that you start getting more used to it once you're in school.
Absolutely. Lishon, you speak about the intersection of learning and civic engagement in your work.
Yeah.
So can you, again, tell us more about that and any recent discoveries you've made in that field?
Yeah. So just maybe jump back a little bit in terms of context. My first degree is in political science. So I studied political science at Harvard. I got into design when I was in one of my early jobs where I was doing communications for political and social advocacy groups. So environmental issues, humanitarian issues, human rights issues, and got into the communication side of things and fell in love with design that way, although I had always been artistic and creative in other ways. And so, I think a lot of my career has been figuring out how these things connect. And certainly the political moment that we're living, both in the United States, but also globally, has really brought to the fore, like this understanding that design is not just about pixels and paint colors and products, is really about power, right? It's shaping people's perception of the world, like not just of a political candidate or a political party, but about social issues like climate change, humanitarian issues. But it's also about the structures of these services that we use in everyday life, whether it's like a ride sharing app or one of the big delivery services, online e-commerce services. All of these sort of things are shaping labor, I'm also involved in my union as a design educator outside of my work at AIGA. So just seeing these issues of labor, both in terms of design educators advocating together for our rights in the workplace, I think is also, yes, like I went on strike back at 22. It can be disruptive, but it's also a learning opportunity, both for us as educators and for students and for the wider community in terms of like what this is really about, right? Obviously, like people are being educated not just to get a job, but to have like a decent living and to be engaged as citizens in the world. So it's not just about, it's not just a consumer interaction of paying your tuition, getting your degree, getting a job. It's really building yourself up as a citizen with a point of view and the ability to exercise power both individually and collectively.
You speak of design for public good. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So prior to coming to work at AIGA, I had started a design practice in New York called FUSA, and we had evolved over the years. But by the time I was transitioning to come in-house at AIGA, and when my co-founder started his PhD program, we were doing a lot of service design projects for the public sector, service design and experience design projects. We had worked with the government of Rwanda, with the Genocide Memorial in Kigali, but also closer to home with the New York City government. So in particular, this is a collaboration with actually Parsons, where I'm part-time faculty as well, working in a lab called the DESIS Lab, designed for social innovation and sustainability, working with public services in New York City related to financial services. So how low-income New Yorkers could get access to free tax prep services. Any New Yorker could get access to financial counseling services, things like that, making it easier for people to learn about these services that are paid for by their taxes that they're already paying for, and that would help them manage their financial situations. And also we were looking at things like client retention as well. So it's like you start a financial counseling program. How do you stay within that program? And just looking at all touch points from the wayfinding and the communications to the other touch points, like how your counselor talks to you, how they keep in touch and approach an appointment. So like all of these things are products of design, right? These are all touch points that can be designed and iterated upon.
Our client retention is a huge topic. That's a very good module for design education, with a mystery module.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like you have like, the marketing funnel, you got the conversion, and then it's like, how do you get people to stay and come back? And I mean, that's something we think about a lot at AIGA as well.
Of course, because it's one of the most challenging things in our field.
Absolutely, especially now because there are so many choices.
Exactly. Okay, so what inspires you lately? Since the last time we've talked, been a long time. So what inspires you from anything, from culture, from books, from I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have a couple things unless Julia wants to go first.
I have started reading a lot of newsletters, and I started practicing a little bit more writing myself, not publicly, just for myself at the moment. But I think it's interesting to see a shift from Twitter or, Instagram, TikTok, very short and impulsive type of consumption, to a more like sit down and read the full newsletter habit. And I see that the newsletter movement is getting every day bigger. So I'm appreciating like being able to read not only, newsletters that are Brazilian. So, in Portuguese, with like speaking of Brazilian culture, but also in the US. So that's something that I'm like very curious about, like learning more about. Like there's one specific, she's Brazilian, that she's talks a lot about behavior and trends, but from a creative political and point of view, merging a lot of topics on gender, which I think it's so fascinating that she talks about fashion and how that has to do with power and all that. So I think that these are some of the things that I have been reading lately.
Yeah, I have so many. One thing, so in terms of like lifelong learning and stuff like that, I recently did a certificate program in sustainable gardening here in Rhode Island. So I've been
I saw the post on that.
So I've been growing my own fruits and vegetables and herbs just outside here in my garden, but also volunteering at a community garden that works with developmentally disabled adults. So they each get their own little garden plots to grow their vegetables and flowers or whatever they want. I think connecting with the natural world, right? A lot of my design education has been in digital. It's very ephemeral. A lot of my grad school projects don't exist anymore because the technology is obsolete. I guess I could find an old computer with Flash to run some of these things, right? So there's a kind of ephemeral nature to this. So it's good to be grounded in all of this, and like sustainability is important to learn about this as well. I'm trying to grow flowers for native pollinators and things like that, in addition to feeding myself, right, and my partner. But in terms of like books and media and stuff like that, I've been a big fan of Star Wars Andor, which just wrapped up its second and final season. Lifelong Star Wars fan, but I think this is some of the best Star Wars since the original series. It's very much, even if you're not a fan of science fiction, it's more about, I think it's a political thriller more than anything else about what it is like to live under authoritarianism and to also fight against authoritarianism, which is very, very relevant to our times. And then the final thing I'd recommend is a book called Assembling Tomorrow. I've been actually using it as a textbook in my teaching for the last year or so. We had the authors Carissa Carter and Scott Dorley on our show as well. And it's really focused on this idea of I think this relates to Andor a little bit, that one of the prerequisites to design or any creative endeavor is imagination, and that all design projects start with fiction, in the sense that you have to imagine something before you can create it and put it out in the world. So the book is a great example of like futures thinking, which is a big theme of my own teaching, as well as getting students to think maybe beyond just the individual project and more about possible future scenarios, and how we try to prevent the ones that we don't want to happen and move closer towards the ones that we do want to happen, and what the role of designers and design is in all of that. Yeah, Assembling Tomorrow is that book recommendation.
That's really exciting. So, I mean, we've spoken a lot about a lot of things. AIGA and your role. So how can our listeners and viewers get more involved with AI?
Yeah, I mean, we would love for folks to become members. We'd love for folks to join us in Los Angeles. Our website is aiga.org. You could find us on AIGA Design. Main channels are our YouTube channel, where you can watch our podcast. We have conference videos that we post there. Board members have been doing this summer live stream series called AIGA Real Talk. So those episodes go on there. They also get live streamed on LinkedIn. That's another place where AIGA is active, as well as Instagram. So AIGA Design on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and then AIGA.org for our website. And then, join us in LA.
That's really exciting. I have to ask the question about what do we change in our design education if there were no limitations? If we would do something, if we had unlimited of everything, what would we create in design education?
I think from my perspective in like formal design education, I wish it were longer. I think part of it is just the costs are so prohibitive already, especially in the US, that these degree programs, I think you need time to work on long-term projects and theses, but also time for reflection. And because students are often working part-time or full-time, and then also going to school full-time, there's just a rush there that I think is a disservice, because I think, certainly doing the master's program, it's like such a short number of years in your total design career, that being able to extend that a little bit, I think would actually prepare folks better for the marketplace or for entrepreneurship or whatever they wanted to do. But I think we have to solve this cost problem.
I think I would also recommend, it would suggest if we could get out of classrooms more. I know some programs are more exploratory in that sense, but actually be in the world, like outside, and, understanding how things are designed, but also the relationship of spaces, objects with people around there. But yeah, that's, I think, what I would recommend more.
Well, it used to be a 7-year program. I mean, a long time ago. And that's only in the UK, only architecture has kept that 7-year path. But it's very interesting what you're saying, that for students and graduates, because, there is an apprenticeship in industry.
Yeah.
So in a way, graduates don't need to feel that, okay, I've got to do everything now. It's another 3 years in industry that you're still completing the education. So it's very interesting how you perceive your education.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think more maybe formalized or structured internship, apprenticeship programs, I think would also allow these design schools to collaborate with industry more, have that more direct link for students. Because right now, I think students are, for the most part, on their own to figure this out.
Absolutely. So what advice would you have for the listeners of our podcast in general?
I think my advice is to stay curious and also cultivate a life outside of design. I think, we get into this because we're really into it, but it's really important to pursue other creative things or other things that are non-commercial. So you don't have to ruin your hobby by making an Etsy shop. I mean, you could do an Etsy shop if you want, right? But there are sometimes it's helpful to maybe just have your own arts practice, or Julia was talking about just writing for herself right now. I think it's important, especially when you're selling your time and your creativity as a designer for your work. It's important to kind of have some other well to tap from of creativity that's not necessarily public or not necessarily commercial.
Or is there life after design?
Yeah, totally.
So, Julia, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I think create some type of routine of silence. And that could be like a meditative moment during your day, or it could be like a writing moment of your day, or it could be just a moment where you actually sit and look at the window. So a moment where actually there are no screens, there you don't have to do anything. It's just kind of pretty much enjoying the silence and maybe the things you have in your mind, like this imagination that Lishan brought that is so important. So yeah, just kind of a moment where you're on your own, enjoying, the physical space where you are without screens, without a lot of stimulus. So yeah, I think that's my suggestion.
Well, thank you so much. I wish you fantastic success on the event and all the activities that you're doing in the future. Thank you for coming.
All right. Thanks, Lefteris.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.
Bye.